streaming software was not supposed to bring my image on here yet. We still have a little more intro music. Gotta have the famous beer pour, or dark apple juice pour.
It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A.
Can anybody
live
guess
stream.
what I was
If you're
trying
old
to
enough,
mimic
grab yourself
with
your
this
favorite
intro?
adult beverage. And if you're not, stick with
Put it in
apple
the chat.
juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music.
Well, hello. How are you guys doing this evening? Sorry for the rocky intro there. The streaming software had a mind of its own. Speaking of streaming softwares, if any of you guys follow the HVAC Overtime channel, you may see that our streaming software for that is being a little finicky right now too. It keeps going live. So it went live yesterday, and then Adam didn't even do it. Adam has the control of that one. He didn't even do anything, and then it just went live. And then this morning it went live randomly too for like a couple hours because none of us were at a computer to be able to turn it off. So the streaming softwares are being silly right now. So if you guys don't know, the live streams, we use streaming software. So I don't remember which one Adam uses, but I use Streamlabs. And so, you know, it has your stream key and it can launch the live streams for you. So sometimes they act a little finicky. Like as the intro was playing, mine switched the cameras and brought it to the view where it showed me being an idiot, you know, ahead of time. But hey, how are you guys doing this evening? Hopefully you guys are doing well. I'm sure you guys know this, but if you don't, my name is Chris. I'm just an HVACR service tech here in Southern California, and I have this little YouTube channel. I started making videos for my own employees, and then I decided to make them public, and here we are now, couple years later, and it's just like this whole thing that I never planned on it becoming. So I saw a super chat come through a few minutes ago. The 98 DeVille, thank you so very much for that, bud. And his super chat message was, please hit the thumbs up. And that is awesome. Please, guys, if you guys are in the chat, if you're watching the video, the stream, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up. If you're watching on mobile, all you got to do is back out of the chat screen, hit the thumbs up, then you can go right back into the chat. If you're on a TV, it's a little bit more difficult, but you can do it. If you're on a computer, it's super easy. You just hit the thumbs up. My understanding with the way that YouTube works and everything, any kind of interaction that we can get lets YouTube know that you guys are actually interacting with the live stream. And I've been told that they like that kind of stuff. Whether or not it's true, I have no idea, but let's test it. So please smash the thumbs up button, leave a comment. If you guys have any questions during the live stream, feel free to send or to put the questions in there in caps lock. Okay, it helps me to see them a little bit better. And if I miss your guys' questions, you can feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Now, I will say this last week has been crazy chaotic for me. I have not been through my inbox for emails. It's crazy, okay? Today, I was working out in the Coachella Valley, which is the low desert of Southern California. It's extremely hot out there. So I was on the roof, threw a thermometer up on top of the air conditioner at about, I think it was 10:30 in the morning, and it said 123 degrees in the morning. That wasn't even the hottest part of the day. The hottest part of the day is typically around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So yeah, that was nuts. Okay. We were out there for a couple hours, and working in that heat can be very dangerous. So you have to watch yourself. Okay. I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit as we go through this. So, you know, I work in the low desert and the high desert of Southern California, in the Inland Empires where I'm located. You know, my house, it's probably about 105. Okay. But when I was working out in the desert today, it was 123. You have to make sure you guys are hydrating, drinking water, skin protection, that kind of stuff. Now, I wear long sleeve shirts. People ask me all the time, how is it that I can wear long sleeve shirts when it's 123 degrees outside? It's because we do not have humidity here. Okay. We have very, very low humidity. Where I was working out in the desert where it was 123, it was 8% relative humidity. At my house right now, I think it's like 23% or something like that. So it's even still really low. Okay. So the long sleeve shirts, they actually protect my skin from the sun. Okay. I'm petrified of skin cancer. So it keeps the sun off my skin, but then also helps to, you know, my skin from getting baked by the sun, basically. Okay. So it keeps me cooler. Now, as far as protection goes in the heat and stuff, I wear like a silly brimmed hat with a headscarf underneath it. I'll usually get the headscarf wet. And then I wear an undershirt, like an Under Armour shirt, so it pulls the sweat away, and then a long sleeve shirt over that. And it does me well. I wear the same uniform from the winter to the summer, and it does a really good job of keeping me cool, or keeping me warm either way. So it does really good. The work shirts that we wear are like the Dickies work shirts, so they're that hard Dickies material. And they do pretty well. But it's so important, guys, to protect yourself in the sun. I'm not an expert in any which way, but hydrating big time. Okay. And understand something. If you start to feel symptoms of heat stroke or heat exhaustion, it's too late. Okay. I mean, you could still protect yourself, but I mean, you need to not be able to feel those symptoms. So you need to take breaks. You need to go cool off, know your body. Okay. I am notorious for trying to work through things. I've only got a few things left to do. I'm just going to power through this and get it done. You know, you have to be careful when it starts getting above 100 degrees. I mean, even at 90 degrees and doing that, you got to be so careful with yourself. Don't push it too far. Know your limits and take plenty of breaks. It's so important. And eat food, okay? Not only drinking water, you got to use, you know, drink a Gatorade every once in a while or something. But I mean, I drink more water than I had like one Gatorade today because it'll help me a little bit. But then you got to eat, okay? Eat. And I know it's hard because I'm the worst person at eating lunches and stuff, but I have to force myself to eat because you need the calories to keep you going. That sun, man, it just drains you and you will hit a brick wall. You'll start getting jelly brain like I talked about last time, and it'll just mess you up. So let me see what else we got in here. Do I drink enough water? Yes, I definitely drink enough water. Usually have a giant water jug with me. So wearing a hat more than 8 hours a day will make you bald. Well, you tell me. I've been wearing a hat for years, and most people didn't even know that I have a crazy amount of hair. I usually shave my head, but I decided to kind of grow it out, and there's no signs of balding at the moment. There's lots of gray hair, but there's no signs of balding. So let's see. What's the worst freezer condition I've seen? I don't know, but that's kind of a difficult question. I need more context than that. Let's see. What is the evaporator and temp for a cooler and a freezer? Well, it really depends on what your evaporator TD is set up to be. Okay. Engineers design the system, so it really depends. They can change the TD of the evaporator depending on the product that's being inside there. For general product like a walk-in freezer, you're typically going to have an evaporator TD of about 10 degrees for a walk-in freezer and about 10 to 15 degrees for a walk-in cooler, depending on what they keep in it. So with that being said, if your box temperature of the space temperature of the walk-in freezer is -10, then your evaporator temperature is going to be 10 degrees below that, so -20. If you have a walk-in cooler and you're maintaining 35 degrees, then your evaporator temperature is going to be anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees below the box temperature. So you can just do the math, and you can, once you find that evaporator temperature, you can find the corresponding pressure on a pressure temperature chart, and that can kind of give you an idea where you're going to go, okay? But it really depends on what's being kept inside the box. If you have a general walk-in cooler, let's say a beer cooler, right, that has a lot of bottled beer and cardboard boxes in it, well, you don't want it to be too humid in that box, because what you'll start to notice is the humidity will start to condensate, and the boxes, when you go to pick up the packages of beer, the beer will fall through the bottom of the boxes because it's so humid in there. So you gotta watch that, and the systems have to be designed appropriately, okay? So be very cautious about that kind of stuff. Produce coolers, they typically run higher humidity because you don't want to dry out the produce. A fish cooler, let's say you keep, you know, at a seafood restaurant, they typically want to see, you know, you don't want to dry out the fish on those things. So, you know, they'll tend to run a little bit higher on humidity too, because you don't want to ruin the fish while it's just sitting in the walk-in cooler. So it really depends, you know. Flower boxes, they're going to run higher humidity because they don't want to dry out the flowers. So every single product that you keep in there, it's going to change the way that the box is meant to operate. So always keep that in mind. Let's see what else we got going on in here. Man, the service calls just keep on going. This is the service request that I just got. The kitchen AC is broken throughout the entire restaurant. Please send help. It says back of the house, heart of the house AC is broken throughout the entire restaurant. So it sounds like they have multiple air conditioners down. You know, let's talk about this. So this has been happening more and more. It's a dire emergency. Everybody needs me. 911. We need you now. We had an emergency service call over the weekend where walk-in cooler was down. My technician went out there. The box was completely frozen up. Once he got the ice off, there was a layer of dirt and lint below that. Then he got that off, and then the coil was falling off, or the coil was falling apart. So we're running into this more and more, that the customers are not doing routine preventative maintenance, okay? And then what happens is the repair is a 911. They need you now, you know? And while I have sympathy for them, you know, it sucks for me because I'm trying to operate a business and trying to stay profitable, but at the same time, man, you know, it's like every single time I plan something, boom, I get a service call and I have to go. So this is life. This is our busy time. This is how it goes. And, you know, I say this quite often too. If I don't accept the call and I don't take the call, then they will find someone else that will take the call. So you have to kind of keep that in mind and weigh out your options. You know, do you want to be stern and stand up and say, no, I'm not doing this crap anymore? Well, they're going to find someone else that will do it. So you got to pick your battles, you know, and be cautious about that. So hello to everybody that's coming in right now. If you guys, like I put on there, if you guys have any questions, please put them in caps lock. That helps me to see them, okay? Let me see. Nick, a balance port TXV versus a normal TXV. What's the difference? Let's see if I can think of the technical explanation for that. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to explain that one on a live stream right now off the top of my head. I'm not even going to try to go there right now. Let's see. The video I had yesterday, why don't restaurants clean them at least once a week? Okay, Chad's asking that one. So he's talking about the cook's drawers, okay? So I had a cook's drawers reach in, and we had a service call on it. It was an overtime call a couple weeks ago. I went out there on a Saturday morning, and I was a little bit frustrated when I got there because the box was still full of food. That kind of frustrated me because I had told them to empty it out the night before. As far as cleaning the box out, you know, it's very rare that these customers actually clean these boxes out. You know, I don't really bitch too much about it. It's just kind of one of those things I've gotten used to. Believe it or not, you know, part of the reason why I don't show the restaurant locations or say what restaurants I'm working at is because there's so many people out there that just don't understand, okay? And what they think is gross really isn't that gross. So what I saw in this reach-in, it was not nasty, guys. This is normal life in a kitchen refrigerator, like of a normal busy restaurant. Okay, yeah, if you have a slow restaurant, they might do a little bit more time cleaning and stuff like that. But to be honest with you, the volume of these restaurants, they don't have time to clean this stuff. You know, there's times, you know, I usually don't show it in videos, but there's times that I'll walk up and I'll say, I'm not working on this till you clean it. But this box wasn't at that point yet. And another thing you have to understand too. So if I went out there and I said, this box is too dirty, you guys need to clean it first, I would have had to go out there Sunday morning. They would have cleaned it Saturday night and they would have had me come out Sunday morning. So it's one of those things that I'm here. I don't have time to come back. This is going to get done now. And, you know, they're not, I politely let them know, hey, I'm about to bake a big mess right now, and I'll bring the cook over. You see how nasty this is? I got to clean this right now, you know? And so then I say, I'm going to make a mess. I'm getting my hose out and we're going to town. Okay. So I don't really give them a choice because here I am. I can either leave and come back in a couple days, but I'm not coming back tomorrow, you know? That kind of happens with me when I get service calls. That's sometimes why I struggle with letting other technicians go and do calls and or some calls, I should say, like apprentices and stuff, but and or trying to walk management through problems. Okay, so let's just walk through this. So I get a service call on a Friday afternoon and they say, my walk-in freezer's not working. Is there anything I can check? And I say, well, you should probably check the breakers and you go tell me if it's iced up. So what'll happen is the customer will say, I'll check the breakers and I'll call you back. Okay. So then I don't hear from them for like 3 hours. And then they call me back and say, yeah, it's still not working. I need you out here now. By then it's late in the evening. So most of the time I don't try to walk these customers through problems. You know, if it's something simple, I'll ask them, did you check the breakers? Yeah, I checked them. Okay, good. Yeah, then I just need to come out, you know? Of course, there's times that I can ask them to do things, but I'm postponing the inevitable, which is I have to go out there. And I'll give you an example. Yesterday I had a service call and it was really frustrating because I was cooking dinner. And it's partially my fault, but I was on call and I hadn't gotten any service calls all weekend. And I decided to invite some friends over. So we were going to cook some kebabs. We had a bunch of food. We prepped it. And I was literally holding the food in my hands and I got an emergency service call for that walk-in cooler that my other technician went and took care of. So it was really frustrating to me because it's like, here I am, I've got friends coming over. I've got plates of food in my hands that I'm about to start grilling that I'm going to have to grill. And then I already made the decision, like, I'm not going to be able to eat. I don't have time. I was going to have to just leave and go do the call because, yeah, I could have stayed home and ate the food, but then that would have postponed my time. You know, then I would have been working till super late. So, you know, luckily I texted one of my technicians that wanted to make some extra money and he was like, yeah, I'll totally take the call. And he took it. But even still, he was there for like 4 hours, you know, de-icing, cleaning, making sure everything's working properly. So I try not to postpone the inevitable. I try not to help the customers as much as possible over the phone. I mean, you know, sometimes I'll give them a bone here or there, make sure the breaker's on, but I hate it. Like if they say, well, let me call you back. I say, no. Get back on the phone right now. Just go check the breaker and come back and tell me, you know, because I don't want to wait for them to say, yeah, let me see if it works. I'll give it a couple hours, you know, and then because then I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, now I can't make plans and I'm going to have to go do this. So, you know, I'm just griping at the moment, you know, just frustrated or whatever, but it is what it is. You know, I know that this stuff happens, but all right. We had 100+ calls for the service today. It's busy. Yeah, we don't get anything like that, Jason, but we definitely are pretty busy. So it's insane, you know, the amount of service calls coming in and stuff right now. Luckily, I was surprised I was able to make it home. I literally walked into my office 10 minutes before the live stream and was like, all right, I'll get in here, you know, just it was nuts. I'm not prepped or ready or anything like that, but it's all good. All right. Let's see. Have I had bed? Oh, no. You're asking. So if anybody has questions, my buddy Ralph is in here. I'll post his email right now. Hold on just a second, and I'll get it up. Ralph is with Honeywell Refrigerants. And if you have refrigerant-related questions, Ralph's the man to ask. He can help you with conversions and changing over and alternatives and all that fancy stuff. So I'm going to post Ralph's email in here right now. He's with Honeywell Refrigerants. Feel free to send him an email. I noticed there's a conversation about 422B and stuff, so Ralph is the man to answer all that stuff. Yeah, it is brutal right now. The cooler guys, I know you're down in San Diego area. I don't know if you saw my social media post. Any of you guys follow me on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. I was working out in the Coachella Valley today out in Palm Desert, and at like 10:30 in the morning, it was 122 or 120. I posted a picture. I think it was 123 degrees on the roof at like 10 a.m. It was nuts. And that wasn't the hottest part of the day. It was insane, man. It's just nuts. Let me see what else we got in here. How am I successfully finding technicians to hire? We're struggling. I'm not. I'm struggling just like everybody else. But here's the thing. I will not. I refuse to settle for anything but exactly what I'm looking for. So I am not willing to hire a technician that doesn't meet my standards. I'm just not going to do it. I've done it in the past and it just bites me in the ass. So if I hire someone as an apprentice, they're someone that has potential. Like, I'm not just going to hire a technician to get me through the summer or anything like that. I'm not going to do that because it just turns into a pain in the butt, especially for people here in California. If you guys don't know, if you hire a technician that is not going to make it, it's a pain in the butt to get rid of that technician. It's just a nightmare. So, in California, you don't want to hire people just to hire them. You want to make sure they're a good hire so that way you're not stuck with them forever. Jose Rivera, thank you so very much for that super chat, bud. That is amazing. You are awesome. Thank you, bud. All right. Let me see what else we got in here. That is an awesome super chat. Is it okay if an LG air conditioning unit to surge, or do you turn it off and have a power outage on 626 to 627? You are on a standby generator. You live in Tacoma, Washington. Is it okay for an LG? I don't know, Matt. I mean, it really depends, bud. If you have power surges, that's not good. You want to have some sort of surge protection or something like that. It's not good for any electronics. So I will advise anybody out there, if you know you're having power issues and stuff like that, customers will call me and they're saying they're going to have a planned power outage or something like that. What I'll typically tell the customers to do, or they can have me do it, is to shut everything off. Just, if you know the power is going out, just go shut off all the three-phase equipment. Just shut it off. And then leave some lights on, and then when the power turns back on, then you go turn the three-phase equipment back on. So that way you don't see weird stuff. Here in California, we're notorious for getting brownouts, low voltage issues, and things like that in the summer. I can tell you that in Laverne, California, their grid, the energy grid is jacked, and you'll see really low voltage, like 100, sometimes below the threshold. You'll see like 185, 184 volts for a 208 volt circuit, which is way low. And it happens more and more. So power conditioning devices, surge protectors, and things like that are very important. So why don't they make window units like heat pumps, or is it already a thing? They make window unit. Most window units are a heat pump, or you can buy a straight cool. So no, that totally works. Let me see what else we got in here. Thoughts on mobile ACs? Don't really have any thoughts. I don't know what, more context to the question if you want, bud. You can either send me an email or try to post it in here again. What can cause a head pressure control valve to bypass when it's not supposed to? John Deere fan. Well, a head pressure control valve typically bypasses based off of the system pressures. Okay. So it looks at the pressure in the system and it says, hey, it's below a threshold. So it'll open up and try to bypass the condenser or flood the condenser to try to drive the head pressure up. So low ambient temperatures, things like that, and or low charge can cause a head pressure control valve to bypass. Now, head pressure control valves typically don't fail on their own. Okay. Things cause them to fail. I'm actually working on a video where it was a perfect example that I had a failed head pressure control valve. And there was nothing wrong with the valve. It was a piece of debris that was floating around in the system that got stuck in it that caused it to stick open. So it wasn't the fault of the valve, okay? It was the fault of improper brazing, improper refrigeration practices. Something catastrophic happened in the system that allow debris to float through the system and eventually got stuck in the head pressure control valve, okay? So I'm going to stand up on a ledge and say this, that the majority of the failures that I have ever seen on head pressure control valves are not the fault of the valve, okay? There's so many people out there that say, I hate headmasters, I hate head pressure control valves because they always fail. Well, no. If we did our job properly, they would not fail as much, okay? Yes, of course there's going to be a failure or two. That's a factory issue or something, but it's very rare, okay? Majority of the time, crap floating around in the system is going to plug it up, cause it to get stuck open, and it's going to, it's going to have to be replaced because it's stuck open, but you can autopsy the valve and take it apart and you'll see, oh crap, there's stuff stuck in it. That's why it wasn't working. So keep that in mind. Is there a segment of the HVAC trade better suited for people that don't like heights? Well, Austin, first off, of course, there's going to be some niche in the industry that might let you work on something if you don't like heights, okay? I can tell you that if you do kitchen work, you might be able to get by depending on the kind of work. You can do hot side equipment work where you fix fryers and flat tops and things like that. Typically, you're not going to have to get on a ladder. But if you do air conditioning and large refrigeration work, walk-in coolers and freezers, you're going to have to climb ladders. That's something you're going to have to get used to. Extension ladders, building ladders, stuff like that. You might get by working in an institutional setting, like in a warehouse or maybe a hospital or something like that. You possibly can get by, but that is going to be a limitation that you're going to have to overcome in some sort of way, because a fear of heights is going to be difficult in this trade for sure. Let's see what else we got in here. 1,000 square foot house, install outdoor condenser plus evap coil and duct, or install ductless mini split. Matthew Schultz, square footage doesn't mean anything to me as far as the size of equipment and the type of equipment. Okay. It really depends on the heat infiltration of the house. You need to know, do a proper load calculation and then make a decision. There's good things and bad things about mini splits. There's good things and bad things about a split system with a condenser and a remote evaporator, okay? Mini splits, I don't care how often you clean the filter. Basically, if you have a mini split, you just need to plan on pulling the blower wheel out and cleaning the blower wheel about every 6 months, because even with the filter on a mini split, they have their own little screens or whatever, crap still just accumulates on the blower wheels, okay? It's always a good idea, too, if you do a lot of mini split work. Most guys will tell you they're going to go, they might even stock blower wheels in their vans, okay? So keep that in mind with mini splits. Mini splits, I have heard, I don't know much about humidity, but I've also heard that they do not do a very good job of dehumidification. So you got to keep that in mind where you live, okay? But square footage is not going to be how we're going to size anything. Square footage is a part of the picture, but you need to find out what your heat infiltration is, what your heat loss, heat gain, all that stuff, and then size the equipment appropriately. I would probably push someone towards a split system and or a package unit versus a mini split. One of the things you have to understand about mini splits too is they have proprietary technology. I'm not saying they're bad. I mean, I've thought about doing a mini splits for my house too, but you need to understand that they have proprietary technology and they often change their designs. So let's say you put in a mini split in your house. 4 years from now, you might not be able to get a new evaporator head unit. You might not be able to get a new condenser because they may have changed the entire design, okay? A standard split system, you can get by. You can put another brand condenser outside. You can put another brand evaporator inside. You can do things to get by, but on a mini split, you can't cross and mix match brands. That's not going to work right, okay? So keep that in mind. Mini splits, I don't think they're going to have the shelf life that a standard split system and or a standard package unit is going to have. I would put a shelf life on a mini split, 5 to 10 years, if you're lucky, maybe closer to 5, if that. So just keep that in mind, okay? Hopefully I answered your question there. Jason Johnson, you're on call for the 4th. Luckily, only have to be on call a holiday once every 3 years. That's really cool, bud. Yeah, my family and myself are actually getting away for the 4th of July this year, where I'm taking a day off. I'm going to take Friday off, and we're going to go up to our local mountain resort, Big Bear, and spend the weekend up there for 4th of July with my wife and my kids. Take the paddle boards out and do that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm a little bit stressed going into today and this week just because of how busy we are and knowing that I'm going to take Friday off. Like, it's just building in my chest right now, but I need to get over it. But it's going to be a nice vacation, hopefully, one day. It's funny. I take one day off, and I'm stressed about it. So, all right, let's see what else. What we got in here. Where do you start if you want to get into HVAC work? Well, what I would highly suggest you do is find a local community college, get enrolled in their trade school program. You can go to the community colleges local. You can usually take night classes and take 1 or 2 classes, okay? The cool thing about community colleges versus private schools is you can just go for like a class or 2 and then decide this isn't for you. I'm not saying you can't do that with private colleges too, but just be very cautious and make sure you understand before you make a huge commitment and then decide this isn't for you, okay? Also, while you enroll in school, what I would encourage you to do is apply at local HVAC companies, whichever style you want, and let them know you're very interested in the trade. Ask them for a shop position, a parts delivery position, a helper position, anything. Most places are looking for anybody that's breathing right now, so you probably have pretty good odds of getting hired on as an apprentice. And then just to explain to them that you want to go to school at nighttime, you know, make sure you get off work in time, and you can go to school at night, work during the day. So I think you're going to have a very good odds of getting hired on at a company. Be very leery. Understand where you're going to apply, okay? Residential, there's absolutely nothing wrong with residential work, but just understand there's going to be a major sales aspect to the residential side, okay? You can do installs for residential, you can do sales for residential, you can get into the commercial side where you're going to have to learn everything, and it's a really good trade. I love it all together. So if you have any more questions on that, feel free to email at hvacrvideos@gmail.com. So, Steve had asked me about what book I recommended for commercial refrigeration. So he's in the residential side and he wants to get into the commercial side. And there is a book that I recommend. It is called Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians. Now, this is the older version. He actually has a new version. So this is the 3rd edition. There's a 4th edition now. But this is Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians by Hvacr. Very good book. This is written for a residential air conditioning technician that wants to get into commercial refrigeration. That's what this book is written for. So it goes through some stuff, but it also skips over some things because it's not teaching you the fundamentals of everything. But this is an amazing book, especially if you're working in refrigeration. It goes through defrost clocks, all types of stuff. And actually really, really neat. I got a mention in the 4th edition book. Dick Wurs actually gave me a mention because he had used some of my videos for like because he has like a book, and then you also have like a online portal that you can follow along and take quizzes and whatever. And he uses some of my videos in there. So it was really neat to find out that he mentioned me in the 4th edition book, just, you know, in the beginning or the end or whatever, just like a special thanks. So that was really neat of him. Let's see what else we got in here. What are we missing? Let's see. Where were I on Friday for the overtime show? Was I on a service call? If I wasn't on, I honestly don't remember. I'm pretty sure I was on a service call though. If I wasn't on the overtime show, I don't remember where I was, but yeah, I was probably on a service call. And I won't be on the overtime show this Friday evening either because I'll be gone with my family. So, let's see. Let's see what I'm missing in here. Big Bear is fun. Yeah, it'll be nice. It'll be nice to get away for the weekend. We just rent like a little cabin and spend the weekend. Let's see. I already answered that one. Flare nut spanners don't seem to be used these days. Any reason why? Flare nut spanners, are those? I don't know what those are. Are those little chinguses that you put on the inside to make sure that you tighten them properly? It's like a little gasket or something like that. Is that what you're talking about? Or I don't know what you're talking about by the spanners. Forgive my ignorance. Can I imagine if Humpty... what am I saying then? Atreus says he would fall down and breaks. What would be silly is because he's really supposed to fall off a wall. Oh. All right. Which do I think is better, carrier split or train? I'm not going to say either one is better. I'm going to say that it really depends on who's going to be working on the equipment and what they feel comfortable in, okay? So when it comes to the commercial equipment, I have some equipment that I love working on, and I have some equipment that I'm not as comfortable working on. And it's not that either or is better or worse, it's just that I'm not used to it, okay? So it's not really fair for me to say which one is better, carrier or train, because I don't do a lot of residential equipment, okay? Train does have a history of having a lot more technology built into their equipment, and it's usually proprietary technology, so be very cautious about that. But carrier can have that too. If you get into the higher end Infinity systems, it's going to be very proprietary, and you can't even sell Infinity systems unless you're a dealer and stuff. So yeah, I'm not going to say either way which one's better or worse because I really don't have an opinion on the matter. So oh, spanner is US talk for wrench. Okay, gotcha. UK talk. Yeah, I don't use wrenches very much. On the flare nuts, people will typically use, you know, torque wrenches and stuff. I just use adjustable wrenches and tighten them down. It's probably not correct. I probably do need to start using torque wrenches and stuff, because the more and more we get into flares on these higher pressure refrigerants such as 410A and stuff, you're going to start to see more leaks, and it really does affect the performance, and you need to be careful tightening them down. Obviously, you don't want to over tighten a flare, because you're going to have issues with that too. So, all right. Do I see many Train RTUs on the West Coast? Everything in the East Tennessee seems to be Train or York, unless you're unfortunate enough to come across an Aeon. Yeah, I don't see as much as of the Train package units. I have a few of them out there, and I'll be honest with you, they're a little bit above my head with all the technology built into them. And like I said, Train does a really good job of keeping that information really tight. You can take classes on the Train equipment, but you have to pay arms and legs and other people's arms and legs to be able to take those classes, and it is a little bit frustrating. But I mean, it's good equipment, it's just they have their technology in it. I work on a lot of Linux package units. That's what I see a lot of out here. Super comfortable working on them. Even with their Prodigy controls, they're not difficult at all to navigate and do your stuff. And they have a very decent technical support you can call, and they'll help you through most things. So, but Train has always been very protective of their information. So, have I spent any time with Brian Orr? Brian Orr and I have met, yes. I have done some podcasts with him. I've written some articles for him. Brian's a cool dude. I actually met him at a training event in Florida about 2 years ago. Really, really nice guy. So yes, I do know Brian Orr. What is my best temperature controller of choice? Carlos. As far as the temperature controllers, I really do like the key to therm temp plus defrost controllers. Those are very nice. And then my second go-to is going to be a Ronco ETC temperature controller, like the 111,000 or the 141,000. Those are pretty good controls too. I'm going to try to butcher your name. Michael McLaughlin. I think it's Michael McLaughlin. Thank you so very much for that super chat. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Any good books or online resources for someone starting in HVAC as a service tech apprentice? Michael, I'm going to strongly encourage you to check out my buddy Brian Orr's website. It's hvacrschool.com. Brian has tons of information, tech tips, articles, different things like that. Lots of great information. As far as books goes, you're really going to want to get involved in a local trade school. I'd highly encourage that, and they're going to have required reading for you to do that. You can do night classes at your local community college, like I mentioned earlier. It's fairly inexpensive. You don't have a huge commitment up front, so I'd highly encourage you to do that. I do believe in a formal education, although I know that a lot of people can learn a lot by reading and watching videos and stuff, but I still believe in a formal education. So I firmly would tell you to investigate some sort of a trade school, even if it's just night classes at a local community college. So let's see what else we got in here. You work on mainly split systems and package units. How do you personally test a faulty circuit board on an AC? You're an apprentice. Michael, it really depends on each AC. So you have to understand the sequence of operation of that logic board, okay, or circuit board. And then you're just going to go through it. Some of them have self-test modes. Some of them don't. So then you're just going to put it into normal sequence of operation. Give it a call for cooling. Give it a call for heating. Does these things happen? Does these things happen? It really is just a matter of what the sequence of operation for each unit is, and then just knowing when it's supposed to do whatever it's supposed to do and watching the circuit board command those things. Circuit board failures on the commercial side, at least on the equipment that I work on, are not very high. I mean, we don't have circuit boards that fail very often. It's pretty low. So majority of the time people think that circuit boards are the failure, but when it's actually other things. So just keep that in mind before you go and condemn a circuit board. A lot of times we'll condemn circuit boards because we don't understand how the equipment is supposed to work. And so we just kind of naturally think, well, it's got to be this, when it's not actually the cause, So be cautious about diagnosing bad circuit boards. I'm checking my thermostat because it is blazing hot in my office right now. No, it's cool in my house, 74 degrees. I have it set for 69, but it's hot in here. All right, let me see what else. Let's see. Can I explain how a Dixel temperature controller works and Johnson Controls MR4. I don't know about the Johnson Control MR4. Dixel temperature controllers, I mean, there's really not a whole lot to them. They're typically a universal control. And they have logic built in. You can pretty much program those things to do almost anything. You can set them up to be heating controls, cooling controls, and it really depends on how you program the control is how it's going to operate. It typically has a set of contacts on the back of the control. You have incoming power, whether it be 120, 240, or maybe even 24 volts. And then you're going to have contact relays that are going to do certain functions when you tell it to. So as far as explaining how the control works, I mean, I would really need to know the context of what it is that you're working on, and then we can talk a little bit more. So feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. We can probably talk about it a little bit more in there. Let me see. Will low supply voltage to a condenser potentially trip an overload/breaker? Christopher Smith. Will low supply voltage to a condenser potentially trip an overload breaker? I guess there's a possibility that low voltage can cause issues like that. That's a hard one for sure. I think that's kind of a loaded question because it sounds like you've got some history on that one. Like I said, feel free to send me an email, bud. hvacrvideos@gmail.com. We can probably talk more. You work on mainly split systems. I already answered that one. Usually have a Linux mini split in your room. Oh, okay. All right. Do swamp coolers do a good job cooling a rack? Yeah, they do a good job cooling a rack. You just have to understand that they're going to make it extremely humid inside that rack. So if you have anything that is raw metals, not galvanized, not stainless steel, then you're typically going to see rust on it and things like that. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, the swamp coolers do a good job, especially, when we have really, really high heat. I've shown it in my recent video where I rebuilt a swamp cooler. I showed, the reason why we use it, and it's because those are indoor condensing units that are just put in a rack. They're not meant for outdoors. What really makes a difference on a condensing unit, what makes it outdoors and indoors, is typically some sort of weather protector, okay, covering it from the rain and stuff like that. But the condenser is usually sized a little bit bigger. The receiver is definitely oversized, okay, to allow storage of that refrigerant when the system is pumped down. And that's an important thing to understand. But yeah, we often will have to put some sort of a cooling medium to pre-cool those racks to try to help out in these high ambient conditions for sure. Let's see what else we got going on in here. How much return, CFM, and what size duct does a 3-ton unit need to normally operate? Well, again, Jackman 4, it really depends on your location, what your humidity is, and what kind of airflow you require. So here in Southern California, we will typically run with 400 CFM per ton. So on a 3-ton unit, that's going to be about 1,200 CFMs of air on average, but that's not a set in stone. That is a rule of thumb, and you have to understand that rules of thumb can be very dangerous because maybe the system is designed to dehumidify better, okay? Maybe it's designed to humidify better. So it really depends on your needs, okay? But on average, a general rule of thumb is about 400 to 450 CFMs per ton in my area. Okay, but again, that's going to change if you go to a humid climate. We don't know what humidity is where I live. So what's the best? I already answered that one. 3, 4, 8, 12. Okay, so Jason Johnson, you're saying 1,600 CFMs. See, but I would think 4, yeah, maybe. I mean, it really depends on what you're trying to do. So, and then as far as ductwork goes, it really depends. Are we talking one single run? Are we talking... it really depends on where you're going, and where the ductwork's going is going to determine your size. JJ, thank you so very much for that super chat, man. $20. That's amazing. Thank you very much, bud. I already said, Carlos, the best choice of temp controllers would be the Ketatherm Temp Plus Defrost is what I choose, and then the Ronco ETC would be the second one after that. Have I ever done service on a chiller before? You've seen big compressors and you know what types of compressors. No, I do not work on chillers, so don't have any experience on that one. Let's see. All right. I'm going to get to my list of things to talk about. So I already answered that question, and I already answered that question. I'm marking things off my list right here. Jake had asked me a question about which leak detector I like and which leak detector I recommend. So currently in my van, I have 2 leak detectors. I have the Infocon Stratus, okay, and I also have the Fieldpiece DR82. Both of them, in my opinion, are equals. They work hand in hand. They both do an amazing job of doing leak detection. There's the Infocon Stratus or Detect Stratus, whatever you want to call it. It has way too many names. Is a nice leak detector, but it is rather expensive at like $800. Okay. It has a cloud hunting mode that gives you a parts per million readout. A lot of people seem to like that display. It is not absolutely necessary, honestly, unless you're working in rack rooms or big giant supermarket situations where you're going to be walking into a highly contaminated area of refrigerant. The cloud hunting feature basically allows you to walk into a refrigerant cloud because it gives you a parts per million readout and allows you to get closer and further from the leak and further, figure out where it is. But something I got to say, if you're walking into a rack room that has got that much refrigerant in it and you're having to use the cloud hunting mode, you need to make sure you have some sort of respirator or something like that, because that's a lot of refrigerant and it could very easily displace the oxygen in your lungs and cause some issues. So be very cautious about that. Now, Infocon also makes a Detect 3, which I have been told has the exact same sensor as the Stratus. It just doesn't have the cloud hunting feature. So that's something to consider, and the price point on that is very comparable with the Fieldpiece DR82. I lean towards the Fieldpiece DR82. That is the one that I've been using the most lately. But like I said, the Stratus and the DR82 are neck and neck in my eyes. They both work equal. So hopefully that answers your question for you, bud. I wanted to talk about, because I got a million questions about my recent video where the reach-in was really nasty, okay? First off, I know everybody always gets freaked out when I show them the pictures of the electrical rooms that are covered in or that are really difficult to get inside and have a lot of crap blocking all the breaker panels. And yes, that is a fire code violation, okay? But it is not my place to report them to the fire marshal. I don't get involved in any of that stuff, okay? I will usually advise the customer. The electrical room has a lot of debris and stuff. I advise you to move it, and I'm done with it at that point, okay? Now, when it comes to the reach-in coolers, there were so many comments that said I needed to call the health department on behalf of customers and consumers and let them know that that restaurant is nasty. If I get into the business of calling the health department on my restaurants, I'm quickly going to push myself out of the industry, okay? It's not my business to call the health department. The health department has their own jobs. They come in and they inspect these restaurants. Again, the reason why I don't show my restaurant locations is most people don't understand. What I showed in this restaurant is normal, okay? These boxes get dirty. I don't know if I'm just numb to it, because I've seen it so much, but it doesn't bother me. A lot of questions that I get too is, do I eat at restaurants? Yes, I do eat at restaurants. Yes, I will eat at the restaurants that I work at. It's not that big of a deal. I don't see it as a big giant thing because I work in restaurants. Maybe I'm numb to it, but I work in restaurants every day and it's pretty normal to see dirty regions. So, all right, let me see what else. If I don't deburr flares, you'll end up with a leak. Seen it time and time again. Exactly. Using a flaring tool is an art, okay? Understanding how to do a proper flare is an art. A flare starts with a piece of copper being cleaned and deburred, okay? If you have to cut it, then you clean it and deburr it after you cut it, okay? Once you deburr it, the thing is you cannot deburr it too much. If you deburr it too much, you're going to compromise your flare. But if you don't deburr it enough, you're going to compromise your flare. So you have to have a properly deburred piece of pipe. And then you're going to put a flare nut on it. Then you're going to put your flaring block and you're going to flare it. You don't want to go too far. You don't want to go too small. And you need to have a clean edge. When you get that flare done, you need to inspect it. And if there's ripples or cracks in the end of the flare, start over and do it again. Using a flaring tool is an art. And I will say that the first part of my career, I hated flares because I could never do them right. It finally took me long enough that I love using flares because I'm lazy and I want to try to eliminate unnecessary work. So I use flares quite often for liquid line dryers and stuff like that. Let me see what else we got going on here. Is there a shortage of parts and refrigerant in my area like in Florida? Yeah, we have a massive shortage of parts, refrigerant. Prices are going through the roof. all that stuff. Whether or not it's a true shortage or whether or not people are just playing the game because everybody's raising their prices, I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty ridiculous how expensive everything's getting these days. It's nuts. All right, let's see what else we got going on in here. I got a million emails coming through right now. Work orders and all kinds of things. Air conditioners down. Of course, everybody's got an air conditioner down, and pretty much every one of them is going to be dirty, needs maintenance, needs belts, needs everything. So it's kind of crazy. All right. Have I seen a true reach-in with an evaporator fan motor completely locked up? Yeah, bud, but yeah. All right. How much is R22 out there in Cali? You know, prices are like 3 times higher than everywhere else. You hit $2K for 30 pounds yet? No, it's nowhere near that. So nowhere near that. Absolutely nowhere near that. The prices in California really aren't that different from everywhere else. It's pretty competitive all the way across the country. So, let's see. What is that object behind my right shoulder on top of the shelf? That is a dial-a-charge. That is an old school device for using for charging critically charged systems before we had highly accurate digital scales. You could fill that with refrigerant, and it has markers on it, so you would know exactly how much refrigerant, depending on the scales they have on it. They might have grams, they might have ounces, they might have pounds. So you would fill it up with refrigerant, and you would see the liquid level of the refrigerant, so you would know how much refrigerant is in the dial-a-charge. So I never used it. One of my technicians found it at a garage sale and brought it to me. Juan, thank you so very much for that super chat, the air conditioning guy. That's awesome, but I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, I like flaring stuff. Now, I won't flare expansion valves on walk-in freezers. I won't flare expansion valves on walk-in coolers. I prefer not to do those, but I like flares on the roof. I like putting a flare on a liquid dryer, because then if majority of the time that I find leaks on walk-in coolers and things like that, the leaks are downstairs at the evaporator, and I usually have to lug my torches up onto the roof to change the dryer. And then, you know, you change a dryer enough, it starts looking silly too, because you have so many brazes on that line, and it's just a pain in the butt. So I like using a flare up on the roof, because then I don't have to take my torches up there. I just take a couple tools, wrench the dryer out, and wrench it back in. So, and Rich says that is an old school bong. I guess maybe people might have used it as an old school bong. That's a possibility. So need a plug-in dial-a-charge. Yes, they do have plug-in dial-a-charges that had heated little chinguses in them. Again, never used them before. That was before my time. But do I know why Honeywell Jade module have trouble when you wire the enthalpy is on outside air and not the S-bus terminal? You've had trouble with them not taking correct temp OA and having to switch to the S-bus. Okay, I'm going to be very cautious about talking about the Jade, because I am not completely the smartest person when it comes to the Jade controls, but the Silk bus setting does use a different control strategy. It uses some kind of a different voltage too. So yeah, you do need to make sure that you hook it up to the right terminals and that you don't necessarily use the analog terminals. So be cautious about that stuff. But I have seen that same thing that you run into, where you have to wire it into the S-bus terminals. Definitely split condenser coils. It'll bite you later if you don't. High pressure trips. That's something for sure. I bring that up a lot, is that most people don't understand anything that is 4-ton and up on residential and commercial is typically going to have a double row condenser coil. That is residential split systems too, guys. Okay, maybe even 3 tons. I don't know, but 4-ton is pretty safe to say. 4-ton and up, you're going to have to split your condensers. Okay, if you have a condenser, if you ever see, you know, they basically can reduce the size of the equipment by putting a double row condenser on there. So keep that in mind when it comes to cleaning equipment. You got to know if it has a double row condenser. Juan asked, again, thanks so much for that super chat, bud. Juan asked if I use a torque wrench on flares. And I'm going to be completely honest. No, I do not own a torque wrench. And no, I have never used a torque wrench on a flare nut. I understand that it is a need, and I really do need to start using a torque wrench, okay? I have made enough mistakes and over-tightened and under-tightened flare nuts that, in all honesty, my old school knuckles, the torque wrench clicks in my elbow, and I know how tight is tight, okay? And I know when it's too tight. But I realize it's hard to teach that, okay? It's so hard to teach that this is tight enough, you know? So a torque wrench really makes it easy and dumbs it down to where click and it, you know, it's tight enough. So no, I do not own a torque wrench. I would like to get a torque wrench. I was kind of curious and doing some research on them, but I haven't gotten to the point that I actually purchased one yet. So do I prefer OEM chinguses? Oh, I always prefer OEM everything when it comes to condenser fan motors and all that stuff. If whatever chingus it is, it's always important to go OEM whenever possible. Let's see what else. Let's see. Thumbs up for another brazing montage. All right. Have I seen a yellow or red light on the Heatcraft Intelligent controllers? Yeah, it all means different things. All you got to do is read the manual and it tells you when there's a problem. Green light means good, red light means bad, yellow light means caution. So, all right. I wanted to kind of talk about something that was brought up in one of my videos, and I want to make it clear, and I think most people understand too. So I did a video a while back where I was working on an exhaust fan, and it was really, really greasy inside, and I was complaining about how greasy it was, and it was just pissing me off, okay? That seemed to trigger the world because they were all freaking out about how I was a Nancy and didn't want to get greasy. Guys, if you haven't figured it out already, I got issues, okay? I got lots of issues in my head, and I would not be the least bit surprised, not taking anything away from anybody, if there's some sort of legit mental disorder, some kind of OCD thing, some kind of slight bit of autism or something like that. Like, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if I was diagnosed with something, if I actually went to the doctor for it, okay? Nothing wrong with those things either, okay? People can function with all that stuff, right? And I think we all need to accept the fact that there's a lot of people that have mental issues, and it's something we need to work with, okay? But when it comes to grease, what I'm trying to get at and try to get off that tangent, when I'm talking about grease, that messes with my head. I can't handle grease. It drives me nuts, okay? I work in kitchens. I work in greasy stuff all the time. But I do like an over whatever job of making sure that I don't get grease on me. When I'm working on those cook strawers, man, the reason why my back hurts is because the reason why I'm laying in those boxes. Like, I'm not putting my back up on things. Like, I'm very carefully reaching into things, putting down cardboard. When I'm working on exhaust fans, I'm going through a box of gloves while I'm on the roof. That's just, I'm crazy, okay? It is what it is, you know, and yeah, whatever. All right, I just wanted to say that. I also wanted to address the fact that, you know, and it happens more and more. Guys, equipment these days is not meant to last. It just isn't. I say this as a joke, but it's true. It really doesn't matter the amount of money that you have, because money doesn't even buy you quality anymore. I mean, you know, there's a certain level of quality you get, but, you know, most equipment is what it is. It's got cheap copper in it, cheap whatever. So we need to understand that. And it's kind of sad too, because, you know, we don't get to fix as much these days. You know, a lot of the stuff is just replace it, just replace it, just replace it. And it's just part of the game you have to play. You know, it's just replace a lot of things, and that's how it goes. So I had some questions about electronic expansion valves, or EEVs, and a few people were talking about it in chat and in the email and stuff like that too. I wanted to explain something too. EEVs getting stuck open. Now, I'm not saying this all the time, okay, but when it comes to electronic expansion valves, you need to make sure that you are doing everything proper as far as refrigeration practices, okay? They open minute amounts, okay? They throttle open a little bit, closed a little bit, and they allow the system capacity to be controlled much better because of the electronic expansion valve. With that being said, so much care needs to go into working on that system. Proper refrigeration practices, brazing with nitrogen, deburring all your pipes, cleaning everything out, making sure you're treating the system right. You will see your failures go up exponentially if you're not doing those things, and you will see more EEV failures. You will see more head pressure control valve failures. It's all about proper refrigeration practices, guys. I can't stress that enough, okay? You need to take the time and do it right, okay? People ask me often, what if my company doesn't want me to do it right? Well, then you have a choice to make. If your company doesn't want you to do things right and doesn't want to give you the time to do it right, that's on you. You make that decision, but you have no ground to bitch on if you choose to stay. Okay? If you choose to stay, you can still vent your frustrations, sure, But you can't be mad at anybody but yourself if you're stuck in a dead-end job with a company that doesn't treat you right, that doesn't pay you right, and doesn't allow you the time to do things, okay? You have the ability to leave that company. Now, I'm not encouraging people to leave companies, but I'm just saying it's your power, okay? You have the choice to go work anywhere. Whether or not you can get a job, you have to do what you need to do. But I mean, just understand that if you have problems with your company, if you don't like the way that they're treating you, if you don't like that they don't let you do things in a timely fashion, talk to them, communicate with them. And maybe you'll come to a decision that it's not going to work for you anymore. Or maybe, you know, you can talk them into things. But I mean, you have that decision-making power on your shoulders to control where you want to go and where you want to work. So, hello, Dwayne from St. Lucia. How you doing, bud? All right, let's see what else we got going on in here. Okay, been out of the trade since 1999. Wow, are things very different? Yeah, things are evolving every single day for sure. Did gloves get extremely expensive in California? Yeah, it's really hard to get gloves. I like the Black Mamba, the black nitrile gloves. Those are my favorite gloves to wear in restaurants and stuff. And I used to get them from TruTech Tools by these giant cases at a time. And TruTech still doesn't have them. Supply houses are limiting. I'll buy them at the supply house now, but it's like 3 times the price. It's insane how much they cost at supply houses. I want to say for a box of gloves is like $25 or something like that. And from TruTech, they were like $11 or something. So it was nuts how expensive they are. But yeah, it's getting hard to find them, and the prices definitely went up for sure. Does winter charge affect performance in the summer? Carlos, no. If the system is installed properly and designed properly, the winter charge, that's just a vague term. It's actually called the flooded charge, and it's gas that sits in the system all year long. See, because the system is designed properly, it's supposed to be designed properly when the condenser is sized accordingly and the receiver is sized accordingly. The extra refrigerant needed to flood the condenser in low ambient conditions should be able to stay in the receiver at, you know, when it's not being used. That's what the receiver is. It's a storage device for when your expansion valve opens and closes. It's got to have a place to put that refrigerant. It stores it in the receiver. Okay. So, no, it does not affect the performance of the condenser if the system is designed and set up properly, for sure. Now, if someone installed a head pressure control valve and the receiver's too small and the condenser's too small, then yes, you're going to have problems in the summer. Okay. That's going to be an issue. You might have to remove refrigerant, but that's not very common. And if that is the case, you need to figure out a situation here, because it's not practical to add refrigerant in the winter and remove it in the summer. That's kind of silly. All right. What's that silver column on top of the shelf behind me? Open blast extraction tube. Silver cylinder on the shelf behind me. I'm assuming you're talking about the dial-a-charge right back here. And that is a refrigerant charging device. Before we had super accurate digital scales, you would use a dial-a-charge and fill it up with refrigerant, and you could see on increments it would have a level of how much refrigerant was in it, and had different scales, ounces, grams, all that good stuff. So I did not use that. That was given to me by one of my service technicians. So let me see what else we got in here. I said it in the beginning. I'll say it again right now with the overtime channel. So the streaming software is going crazy. That's why it keeps going live. It went live yesterday afternoon, and then it went live again this morning. The streaming software that we use for that is just being silly. So that's why the channel went live for some strange reason. All right, let's see what else. Can a freezer coil and a cooler coil be connected to the same condensing unit? Yes, they could. Okay, but you're going to need to understand there's going to be some limitations. If you install the right controls and the right valves, you could have a parallel rack system that had, you know, low temp and medium temperature, but it is going to be difficult, and it's going to take some dialing in to get set up properly. It's best to have them separated if at all possible. Okay, because the refrigerant temperatures are going to create an issue, and you might have some issues there. But it is possible. Just takes a lot of work and a lot of fine tuning. Based on my experience, what's the head pressure on a true pizza table 134A supposed to be? Thomas, okay, it really depends on the ambient temperature, okay, and all that. But I will say, if you have a 134A true condenser, you should always look at temperatures versus pressures, but I'll make this one easy for you. Your head pressure on a true unit operating in a kitchen below 80 degrees should never be over 150 psi on a true cooler, and your suction pressure on a true cooler at temperature, about 40 degrees, will typically be anywhere from 5 to 10 psi suction. Okay, so that's just general. But I mean, if it's high in temp, your pressures might be different. Understand that true units, most prep tables and different things like that, are not meant to operate in a kitchen over 80 degrees ambient ever. Okay. Let me see. Accumulator allows vapor to the compressor, not liquid. Receiver is a liquid storage vessel. Yeah, I don't know if someone was asking that. Can I explain the tonnage of a unit? Tyler, the tonnage of the unit is the way we express the cooling capacity. So when we say it's a 5-ton unit, it has 5 tons of cooling capacity. There's 12,000 BTUs per ton. So if you take a 5-ton unit, it's going to be a 60,000 BTU cooling capacity. So we rate that in tonnage. It is not tonnage as far as weight goes. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question. Answered that question, hence the name liquid receiver. Okay. Yeah. Is there a difference between a suction line accumulator and a receiver? I realized why the question was being answered there. And yes, there is a difference. They are piped different. The insides of them are different. A suction line accumulator has a dip tube running into it, or actually draining on the top. No, it has a dip tube in it, and then the refrigerant leaving does not come out the dip tube. It pulls from the top of the accumulator, so that way liquid refrigerant goes to the bottom of the accumulator and only vapor comes out of the accumulator. A receiver operates opposite, basically, okay? But like I said inside the chat, a receiver is a storage vessel for extra liquid refrigerant when the expansion valve opens and closes, and or extra refrigerant for a flooded charge or for a pump down situation. An accumulator is there to protect your compressor from liquid refrigerant washing the oil out of the compressor, okay? Flooded starts, things like that, an accumulator helps with that, okay? But there's a lot of other methods, too, to protect the compressor. So, see what else we got in here. I already answered that one. What do I use for calculating BTUs for an AC unit for cooling only? If I'm going to do, I'm assuming... I don't know what you mean by that, Chad. I use Measure Quick if that's what you're asking, and it tells me the BTU capacity and estimation of it. That's what I'll use. Or do you mean like finding out how many BTUs a building needs? That's when you're going to need to get an engineer involved and do a load calculation. A suction line accumulator is typically used with a capillary metering device. Mark. Yes, you will have a suction line accumulator typically on capillary tube systems. It might look a little different. Oftentimes on a reach-in cooler that has capillary tubes, they'll have an accumulator on the outlet of the evaporator or something like that, and it's to protect the compressor from getting flooded with refrigerant. So because on a capillary tube, the flow of refrigerant is always the same. So if it has a low load, and you have the same amount of flow going through the cap tube, it's not adjusting like an expansion valve, you have the potential of flooding back to the compressor and washing the oil out, okay? Under a higher load, you're not going to have as much potential of flooding back to the compressor, so we'll add an accumulator in there to protect it. So let's see what else we got in here. What do I use for I already answered that. Based on my experience, I already answered that one. Let me see. I already answered that. All right. What's the best starting vacuum pump and recovery machine? Jay Gonzo. Well, you know, again, it really depends on what you're working on. I really like the Field Piece products. Okay. So, the new vacuum pump models that they have 3 new models. I would look into those vacuum pumps. If you can afford them, get the ones, the higher end. There's 2 of the higher end ones. I think it's an 8 CFM and a 10 CFM. If you're not going to do anything big, then go for the smaller 8 CFM because it has a DC motor and it has a soft start to it. It's just a really nice vacuum pump. They also have the same in their recovery machines too. I really like the VP. So I have the VP X7, which is the 10 CFM vacuum pump. And then the MR45 is their recovery machine, which is a great recovery machine too. So I would encourage you to look into those ones. Feel free, any of you guys that are interested in purchasing tools, check out TrueTechTools.com and use my offer code Big Picture at today's moment. Right now, it could change tomorrow, but right now, if you use my offer code Big Picture, you get an 8% discount, and then I get a small commission of that. You get to save the money still, and that helps me because they give me a commission of the sale. Also, if you guys are interested in purchasing from them, if you send me an email knowing what you want to purchase, I can generate an affiliate link. You can still use my offer code Big Picture, and I get a little bit more of a commission by generating an affiliate link too. So Juan, thank you so very much for that super chat, bud. bud. That's awesome, man. Will an accumulator allow for a 65 and 55 degree split wine cellar refrigerant system to work with one condenser? Split wine cellar refrigerant system to work with one condenser. I don't know that an accumulator would make much difference. An accumulator is always a good thing. Juan, send me an email. We can talk a little bit more, bud. hvacrvideos@gmail.com. I kind of need some more context of where you're going with that one. So send me an email, man. How did the term tonnage become used in refrigeration? Carlos, that is a good question, bud. That is beyond my pay grade. What is the best starting? I already answered that one. For load calculation. Okay, Chad. For load calculations, I don't do a lot of load calculations. For when I did a few residential ones for like family members, I used RightSoft, which is a block load calculation software that tells you heat infiltration and stuff like that. But nowadays they're really talking about using blower doors and things like that to get a much more accurate representation of your infiltration and your loss. So I do some research on that. Let's see. What is the best contamination check? That's a good question. I don't have refrigeration technologies. First off, does have an acid test kit. I would look into their kit. Sporlin also has ones too, where you can do contamination checks. I'm not a fan of the quick ones that you just put on the system and it just blows a little refrigerant out, because in order for those little, they use like Lipness paper or something like that, and you just put it on the Schrader and it blows across it. The thing about those is, in order for them to work right, my understanding is there has to be oil in that refrigerant, and the oil has to get onto that paper. So if you're just spraying vapor refrigerant, I don't know if that's going to be as accurate. So the best way to do it is to actually test the oil for contamination, in my opinion. So I would look into refrigeration technologies, and then also Sporlin has one too. I'd look into their test kits. Thoughts on low-profile evaporators installed near walls? You sound like you got pissed off, R. O'Reilly, because I get pissed off at those too. They're very frustrating, man. It just drives me nuts when people install them way too close to a wall and don't give room. Don't read the installation instructions clearly, because they're like impossible to work on. Let's see. The Simpson meter behind me is an electrical or dual temp. Does it still work? That is a Simpson 260 meter. And yes, it does still work. That was my dad's meter. I did not use it. He just had it sitting in our shop, and so I took it. I also have an old school Annie, which is a compressor analyzer, sitting right next to that, and both of those work. So, all right. Let's see. We send the oil out to be tested. Yeah, Jason Johnson says. I mean, that's a way to go too. So. How do I not worry about work at home as an owner? How do I not worry about work at home as an owner? Oh, dude, I am the wrong person to ask that, because I absolutely worry and obsess about it. The anxiety that I have going on in my chest right now, knowing that I'm taking this Friday off, is killing me. I've already almost, in my head, I've canceled my vacation this weekend 2 times because I had a technician that was hurt. And I already said, you know what, I'm just going to cancel my vacation. And then, my dad and my wife talked me off the edge. And then this week too, because we had a bunch of service calls come in this morning, and I was like, I'm just not going this weekend, I'm still taking 2 cars to our family vacation just in case I have to leave. So no, I am the worst person to ask about how to run a business, because I stress about it more than ever. Always thinking. I lose sleep over it. The only reason I get sleep, yeah, let's not even go into that, but is taking medicine that helps me sleep. So that's the best way. All right. Is there a vacuum pump and recovery in one, like a 2-in-1? Chad, that is just a horrible idea, thinking about that. Okay. So yes, there is one, but it's just not practical. Okay. Navac has one that is a recovery and vacuum pump all in the same, and it does everything for you. If you think about the mechanics of an evacuation and a recovery, they're totally different. And for that to honestly work properly, it would be so heavy. It would be insane. So no, there's not one that I recommend, a recovery and vacuum pump together. The tolerances, the pumps and everything, it's just logistically a nightmare thinking how they would make that tool. And no, I would not recommend anything out there that does recovery and vacuum in the same. Let's see what else we got in here. Do I ever work with pneumatics? No, I do not. I have not worked with pneumatics ever. I've taken classes on them. That's it. Let's see. What is Bill? How many BTUs in the movie Frozen? Bill, you know that if you have a question, you're supposed to put it in caps lock. Do you not see the pin post at the top, Bill? You know what? Bill, you're in timeout. Bill just got put in timeout. So, you know, for not putting his question in caps lock. So, yep, he's in timeout. Done. Problem solved. See, this is what happens when you don't follow the rules. All right. Would I take a call after this tube session tonight? No, I mean, if I had to, I would take a call. Yeah, but I don't want to. I want to sit down. So I really did time out Bill too. Oh, Bill is timed out for 300 seconds. Do I use a molecular rethermalizer, molecular transformator or whatever? No, I don't. You can buy these little chinguses. Basically, it's a subcooler. It takes the refrigerant from the recovery machine and it condenses it into a liquid. I don't. If you cool the recovery tank and you use large diameter hoses and you take out the cores, I haven't had the need to use molecular transformators or subcoolers or any of that stuff. My recovery goes really fast when I cool it down. So, all right. Let's see what else we got in here. All right. You have a split system that is running per manufacturer's spec, but the humidity is very high and has a hard time removing it. You are in Texas Gulf Coast. Any ideas, Kevin? Yeah. Humidity is a pain in the butt. Okay. The unit may be operating to manufacturer's spec, but it probably wasn't designed to remove humidity. Okay. So I don't live in a humid climate, but I do know that people start playing with the airflows and different things like that to remove humidity. You can also get dehumidifiers to try to help you with that. But when it comes to humid climates, you need to be very careful about humidity because then you start getting into mold and issues like that. So you got to be very cautious about that. And that can cause big issues there. So oversized equipment can definitely cause humidity issues. It won't remove humidity. So just be very cautious about that. You can play with the air speeds and different things like that to try to control it a little bit better. I'm not a huge expert in that though. What plan do I have in place for retirement? Weaver maintenance. Well, obviously I put money away into 401ks. I have money in savings and things like that. Of course, I don't have enough money that I'd like to have saved, but you know, just trying to put money away. I'm also, you know, always interested in better things for retirement and stuff like that. But it's definitely something that I do put money away for it, but I'm not like, you know, I don't obsess about it or anything like that. So I should cut an accumulator and receiver open to show them for people asking about them. Well, I don't condemn very many accumulators, but this is a receiver right here. This right here is going to be the outlet. Notice that the dip tube is going down to the bottom of the receiver so it can draw the liquid refrigerant from the bottom of the receiver. And this is going to be the inlet right here. So it just dumps in there. The refrigerant accumulates in here. The liquid will form at the bottom. The refrigerant leaves via this tube right here. This is a small accumulator. This is open. This tube right here is open on the bottom. I can see right through it. So that is a cutaway of a receiver right there. All right, let's see what else we got going on in here. How do I use horsepower to size a walk-in? What is horsepower to tonnage? Yeah, that gets a little bit confusing. I don't really pay much attention to horsepower when it comes to equipment, okay? So when I'm dealing with sizing walk-in equipment, I'm going to use a load calculation software. Russell has one, a Ream. I can't remember the name of it, but there's a couple different ones. Trenton has one, all the different manufacturers out there. So you do a load calculation on your walk-in. You find out what the desired equipment capacity is based off of the heat infiltration and the heat loss and stuff. And you find out that you need, you know, 18,000 BTUs per hour or something like that. So then I'm going to size my equipment via the BTUs. I'm not going to pay attention to horsepower. Okay. They'll often have like a 3 horsepower unit, but when you look up the information for it, it's going to tell you at 80 degrees, the BTU capacity is this, 90 degrees, 100 degrees, 110 degrees, it's going to change. The BTU capacity, delivered capacity, is going to go down as the outdoor ambient increases, basically. So I don't pay attention to horsepower. I just look at the desired capacity that I want in BTUs and then find out what that particular condensing unit is going to deliver at whatever the extreme ambient condition that it would be in you know, left in or working in. And then I size my equipment that way. But before you size a condenser, you're typically going to pick your evaporator first. So you find out what your box load is, your load calculation. You find an evaporator. You find out what the BTUs are for it. And then you pick your condenser that delivers the BTUs needed for that evaporator to work properly. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, let's see what else we got in here. Do hard start kits work, and are they safe to use on compressors? Well, Chad, it really depends, okay? There's mixed definitions on what people call a hard start kit, okay? So you have 3-in-1 start capacitors for refrigeration compressors, okay? They are universal 3-in-1s. They typically come with an overload device, a relay device, and a capacitor. They're typically in a small package. It's like a 3-wire connection, and it's easy, okay? I'm not a fan of 3-in-1 start capacitor kits, whatever, okay? Couple different manufacturers make them. I'm not a fan of them because what they do on fractional horsepower compressors, the tiny compressors, the OEM starting components are always best to use, okay? Because the manufacturer designed them to work that way. 3-in-1s are universal. And the biggest complaint I have about a 3-in-1 is that it takes the overload that is typically on the body of the compressor that senses the thermal temperature of the compressor along with the current of the compressor. They take that overload and they move it into the 3-in-1 start device so it no longer senses the thermal temperature of the compressor and it only looks at the current of the compressor, okay? So it is no longer a thermal overload. It is now a current sensing device. And I'm not a fan of 3-in-1 start kits because of that. Now, a hard start kit for a residential air conditioner will typically be a bigger capacitor and relay that is installed across the run capacitor, and it assists with the start of the compressor. They will often be used on compressors that are on their way out. They're getting tight inside, and you'll put a hard start kit on it to get the compressor to start up, but it's usually living on borrowed time. What's really important is if you're having problems with the compressor starting on a residential situation, what you actually want to do is reach out to the manufacturer of that compressor and find out if they have starting components, like legit starting components for it. Because oftentimes they do. On single phase compressors, residential, you will have a listed run cap, and then you will oftentimes have optional start cap and potential relay. Okay, so that's important to know too. I'd prefer using the manufacturer's recommended potential relay and start cap and run cap than adding a hard start kit, which is going to be an oversized capacitor to try to help it start up. Okay, that's just my 2 cents on the fact. Let's see what else we got. How old am I? I'm 38 years old, Nicholas. Just turned 38 last week, actually. It was just my birthday. See what else. You use 3-in-1 as a tool to test the unit. If it works, you order OEM. Danny, that is exactly what I do. I have 1 or 2 3-in-1 start kits for fractional horsepower refrigeration compressors in my truck, and I will use them to try to start the compressor and sometimes to get me through a weekend until I can order the OEM starting components and go back. Now, when it comes to using OEM starting components, I'm always a fan of using those. The biggest reason why is because for liability. Using aftermarket starting components or 3-in-1 starting components, you're changing the UL listing of that box. Now, I get it. You know, technically, if you put on a temp control, you put on a new cord, you're changing the UL listing too. So, but I prefer to not have a capacitor sitting in a box next to the compressor. I prefer to have the OEM capacitor that comes with a cap that fits back into the housing and clips back in. I just like OEM because it's easier, okay? It's so much easier for me to have multiple technicians out there ordering the OEM starting components than for one of those technicians to go to the supply house and say, well, do you have something that can work? And then the supply house says, yeah, this should work. You should be okay. I hate the word should, by the way. You know, it just takes the guesswork out of it. You just put back in what belongs in it. Problem solved. The engineers at the manufacturer have already figured that crap out. Let's see. Michael, you said you asked a question earlier in my Facebook inbox with pictures. I'll have to look at that question there, Michael. I don't have my Facebook pulled up right now. Is this job hard? This job can be very difficult, but it can also be very rewarding. I love HVACR as a career. It is awesome. Bill is now Bubba. That's right. Hey, Bill got back in here. Bill must have passed. See, his 300 seconds timed out. Bill, you keep acting good or you'll get timed out again. Okay, Bill? All right. Let me see what else we got in here. See, I already answered that question. Cool. All right. Why do RTUs have GFCI outlets? Because they just, it's actually code in some areas that in a package unit or an air conditioner on a commercial building has receptacles within so many feet of each unit, depending on the area. So oftentimes manufacturers such as Lennox, they will ship their package units with a GFCI receptacle in there, but it has to be wired by the electrician or the contractor installing it has to bring power to it. So will a hard start kit drop amps on an air conditioner, Chad? Well, it'll help the compressor to start easier. I don't know if it's going to drop the amps. I guess maybe the inrush could be lower when it's starting up. I'm not super smart when it comes to that, though. Let's see what else we got in here. Is a hard start kit the same as a super boost? Small fry. So again, hard start is such a vague term. So you have 3-in-1 start kits that come with for refrigeration compressors. Okay, they come with a start capacitor, a relay, and an overload. And then you have a hard start kit, which is typically the same thing as a super boost. Super boost is a brand of hard start. I believe super boost is Subco, I think, or something. And essentially, yes, it's a start capacitor and a relay that's going to wire on top of the run capacitor, essentially, or in parallel or whatever. Let's see. How does a unit with one compressor and condenser run 2 evaporators? Hamilton Mechanical. Well, because refrigerant flow is refrigerant flow, okay, especially if they're the same capacity evaporators, and it's all about storage. So you can have multiple evaporators as long as you have multiple solenoid valves to shut off each evaporator, or you can have 2 evaporators with 1 solenoid valve, but as long as you have the storage capacity for the refrigerant coming out of the receiver is liquid either way. It doesn't matter if there's a T and it's going to 2 evaporators. It's still delivering that liquid refrigerant. So if the system is designed for capacity correctly, the condenser is big enough, it can run however many evaporators you need it to run. When you start hitting multiple evaporators, though, that's when you really need to start being concerned about oil return. Line sizing is imperative to proper oil return, because if you have multiple evaporators, you're typically going to have a decent pressure drop, and the refrigerant lines need to be sized accordingly for the vertical runs and the horizontal runs. For the risers, you got to have P-traps to help get oil back to the compressor. So even with a single evaporator, you need to be concerned about oil return, but when you get into multiple evaporators, that's when you really need to be concerned about it even more. But it's not any different than what the refrigerant compressor is doing as it's pumping refrigerant. It's just a matter of having enough storage capacity for all that liquid in a receiver to run 2 evaporator coils. So it doesn't make any difference. Do I prefer Linux or Carrier? I prefer Linux just because I'm super comfortable working on them. I'm not going to say that Carrier is better or Linux is better. It's just I work on more Linux units, so I know the problems quite quick in the back of my head. So what is my opinion about working with chillers? Mysticism official. I don't do any work with chillers, but it's good work. It can keep you indoors majority of the time, depending on majority of the chillers are going to be in mechanical rooms and stuff. There is some rooftop work too, but it's going to keep you indoors more, I would say, working in like hospitals and things like that. But it's good work, big heavy work and stuff, but I've never done it, so I have nothing bad to say about it at all. Let me see what else. How to check superheat on multiple evaporators. Well, if you're going to have multiple evaporators, you just simply have the system operating properly as close as possible to desired set point temperature. So if you want 35 degrees in the box, I wouldn't check superheat unless you're within 5 degrees of set point. You can put your refrigerant pressure gauges on both evaporators. This is where digital really comes in handy. Measure Quick has a multi superheat mode, so a field piece you can do multiple superheats too. But you just open up the app and put a pressure port on each coil and a temperature clamp on each coil and just watch the superheat. And as you adjust one valve, watch them both. Watch them how they operate and stabilize. It's really important to understand when you are adjusting superheat that you're giving plenty of time for the system to stabilize out. It seems crazy, but when you adjust an expansion valve, 5 to 10 minutes minimum, you need to give the system to stabilize out before you try to adjust it again, because it's going to take some time for it to stabilize, especially if you have multiple evaporators. Would a hard start kit prematurely break a new compressor? I can't say that it's going to ruin a compressor. I don't know that to be fact. I don't know. No, I don't work on chilled water systems. Yeah, Hamilton Mechanical. Still the same thing, buddy. Even on automotive, it's just going to have multiple evaporators. The accumulator receiver in the front end, isn't it an accumulator receiver dryer or something on those things? It's just going to be the storage capacity when you're not calling for both systems. There's going to be extra refrigerant stored in the condenser and the receiver. And the same concept on automotive. So. All right, would a hard... No, I don't think it would break a compressor. I already answered that one. Don't have pressure ports on the evaporators. Well, Danny, if you don't have pressure ports on the evaporators, that's where it starts to get a little bit more difficult. So there's some rough estimates that you can do. If the condenser's not too far away from the evaporators, you can use suction pressure at the condenser, but that's where pressure drops come into play, because if there's refrigerant line size changing or it's a really long run, then you're probably going to have a pressure drop. So that means that if you check the pressure at the compressor, it might not be the same as it would be at that evaporator. So you have to be very cautious about that. But if it's a 10, 20 foot run, you're probably pretty safe checking the pressure at the compressor, the suction pressure, and then just doing the temperatures at the outlet of each evaporator. John Cantwell, thank you so very much for that super chat, bud. That is awesome. Super thankful. All the support that you guys give me is amazing. Okay, you guys are awesome. I'm so thankful for all of you guys. It's so humbling making these videos because I'm just a normal service technician, guys. And it's so crazy to see that you guys all watch these videos and to think I never planned on making these things public. Like, they were originally just for my employees. It's so humbling. You guys are amazing. Thank you very much. Okay, really, really appreciate you all. Let me see what else we got in here. What components create buzzing noises when failing? Logan Paul. HVACR Wiz. Dude, super chat. Thank you so very much, man. You guys are blowing my mind with all these super chats. It's so humbling. Thank you. You guys are giving me your hard-earned money, and I didn't even know. I feel bad, okay? Thank you guys very much. Thank you. So Logan Paul asked, what components create a buzzing noise when failing? Well, I mean, that just depends. Electrical components. I think that's the easiest answer to say. But let's just talk about a contactor, because that's often what people will hear buzzing and they will be concerned, okay? So a buzzing contactor can mean a couple different things. It can mean that there's a voltage problem for the low voltage that's controlling the contactor. It can also mean that there's bad electrical connections on the points of the contactor too, and it's starting to fail. So there's a couple different things that can cause buzzing, but typically when electrical components are starting to fail or there's issues with them, you'll start to hear buzzing and weird loud noises. So can a power surge blow fuses to an AC unit? Sure. I mean, all kinds of things can happen in a power surge. Random stuff can happen. Thank you very much, Danny. That is awesome. I really appreciated Jason Johnson. That is awesome, bud. You know, I try to stay consistent with the releases and everything, Thursdays and Sundays for sure. Same time, same bat channel, same bat time. Are Sure Starts worth the money? I've heard really good things about the Sure Starts, Eric Phelps, but I've never used them before. So, I have one actually sitting in my garage that I've been meaning to put on my own air conditioner. But I just haven't done it. Sure Start is a proprietary contactor that Emerson, White Rogers, Copeland, I don't know who makes it, but they're all the same company, pushes. And it's an interesting contactor that has protections built into the contactor. They're supposed to be really good in situations that have ants and things like that, where the ants attack the contactor. Supposedly the Sure Starts are supposed to be good at that. Honestly, I've never used it though, so I don't know. But I've heard good things about them. Let's see. What's a subcooled compressor? A subcooled compressor doesn't really make sense. Subcooling essentially is the performance of the condenser. Subcooled refrigerant, as the refrigerant is pumped out of the compressor, it leaves as a high pressure, high temperature superheated vapor, essentially. Okay, so it's compressed in the compressor, it leaves as a vapor, it goes through the condenser, and if the condenser is working properly, if the system is charged properly, when that refrigerant leaves the condenser, it will then be subcooled. That is the point at which the refrigerant is going to change from a vapor to a liquid, and then we have a typical desired subcooling measurement at the outlet of the condenser that will tell us if the condenser is charged with the right amount of refrigerant. Okay, so subcooling is a performance metric of the condenser and the system, and it kind of gives you an indication of the charge. But you can't just look at subcooling. You can't just look at superheat. I was just talking to my apprentice today because we were working on an air conditioner, and we were I was explaining to him, like, look, we have all these pressures. So when I pull up Measure Quick and I have all my probes on it in an air conditioner, I'm looking at the airflow, I'm looking at the outdoor air temperature, I'm looking at the pressures, the air, I mean, I said the airflow, the superheat, the subcooling, and I'm looking at everything as a whole. And then I'm saying, okay, so we have extremely high subcooling. My head pressure looks really high. The outdoor ambience not that hot. What's going on here? You know, so then we go and investigate and we find out that it has a dirty condenser. Okay, so we clean the condenser and then everything falls in line. So it's not just looking at subcooling, it's not just looking at superheat, it's looking at everything. And then it gives you a better picture as to what's going on, okay? So we don't just focus on one metric. Superheat and subcooling don't mean crap to me if I don't have proper airflow. So airflow is key. Will I install components customers buy themselves off the internet? Small fry. Yes and no. Okay. So I have large commercial customers. I deal with restaurants only. So I have large commercial customers that buy their own air conditioners, buy their own ice machines, but I do not install parts for customers. Okay. I will not install their parts if they try to buy them. It's just not going to happen. Okay. I will install equipment because they get crazy good pricing on it. And I get it. That's just part of the game, but I'm not installing customer supplied parts. No, not going to happen. What brand of AC do I have in my house? Michael Hansberry. I have an older Arco Air system, which is a ICP brand, which is the same brand that owns Carrier. It's all the same stuff. So, but I have an Arco Air system, an oversized 4-ton Arco Air system. My system in my house is horrible. Hello from Bornero. Thank you. Right on. Laska. If you guys get the likes up to 250, I will give away a hat on the stream right now. I'll do the stream for another few minutes. So smash the like button, guys. We have 307 people in here, 313 people in here right now. If we get it up to 250 likes or higher, I will definitely give away a hat on the stream right now. So you guys go ahead and do that. I'll pick a random person in there. So smash the like button, get it up there. Someone in the chat tell me when the likes get above 250. What temp is a compressor shell on an R22 unit at 100 degrees? I don't know what temp it's going to be, but you typically don't want to go over 225 degrees. Discharge temperature about 8 to 10 inches away from the compressor is the number that Copeland wants you to do. They don't want you to be over 225 surface temperature of the discharge line. Right on, Jason Johnson. Let's see. What do I look for or feel before hooking up gauges? I'm just going to look at general operation of the system. I'm going to look as the compressor's sweating, but I mean, it really depends on the ambient conditions and everything. It's really hot outside. Do we have a cold suction coming back, a hot discharge? Is the belt tight? Is the condenser clean? Is the evaporator clean? Are the filters clean? Yes, all that stuff's good. Then I'm going to apply service gauges if it's not working properly. Wow, we already hit 250 likes really quick. Okay, cool. So hang on just a second. Let me pull up the Nightbot, and we'll do a random comment picker. So hold on, let me log into this. We're already logged in right now. And what we're going to do is a random comment picker. So I see all the people in there right now. So what I want you guys to do is go ahead and start chatting right now. Okay. You guys chat. Let's see. And I will pick a random person here in just a few minutes. Okay. We'll actually do 2 hats. Okay. We'll make it easy because that way we can do 2 people. So you guys start chatting right now. And the moderator bot is going to pick a random person. So currently right now we have 34 eligible users. You guys get that number up, start chatting, and I'll wait till we get that number up a few people. Dripping brown apple juice down my face. All right. 65 eligible users right now. Keep going. I'll let that number climb a little bit. 73 eligible users. Wait till it gets above 100 eligible users. It's basically counting the people that are chatting right now. So I'll wait till it gets above 100 people chatting. It's almost there. We're at 91. Once it's there, I'll pick 2 members. It's going to pop up in the chat. It's going to say that you won a hat. What you guys need to do, once I announce your name, you guys need to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. The winners do. and give me your hat size, small, medium, large, extra large. Give me your address and your phone number and your name, and I will get the hat out to you, okay? So hvacrvideos@gmail.com. So we have over 100 eligible users that are commenting right now. Let me make sure that everything is active, okay? And I'm going to roll the first winner right now, and it is Mark Davis. Mark Davis, send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com, and I'll get you a hat sent out. Okay, I'm going to write that name down. Mark Davis, and I'm going to go ahead and pick another one right now. Another random person, and we're going to roll it. And it is RZIEM 420. You are the other winner too. RZIEM 420. So Mark Davis and RZIEM 420, you guys are the winners. Everybody stop chatting. Okay, so RZIEM 420. Both of you guys need to send me emails to hvacrvideos@gmail.com, and I'll get you guys' hats sent out. Again, let me know what size hat you want, what your address is, what your phone number is, and your name, and I'll get those sent out to you, okay? All right, so with that being said, I'm going to turn the moderator bot off. I'll look forward to those emails. And guys, it is time that I wrap this stream up. I really, really appreciate you guys. All the super chats, you guys are amazing. Thank you guys so very much. I hope you guys stay cool in this crazy heat that we got going on right now. Stay safe. Remember that your family is the most important thing. You guys need to be good humans for sure, okay? Remember that when it gets hot, everybody gets stressed out. Everybody's angry. Everybody's upset. Tempers get short. Try to take it easy and be kind to one another for sure, okay? We have enough craziness going on in this world right now. We don't need, you know, people being silly to each other, okay? So just try to remember that. Think about the next person for sure, okay? I really, really appreciate you all. You guys are amazing. You guys keep me sane when it comes to all this craziness. This whole YouTube thing is definitely something that has helped me. Again, I really, really appreciate you guys. And the winners, you guys need to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Other than that, I'm going to cue up the outro music and cue up the exit screen. And guys, I will definitely catch you guys on the next one. Why are you still here? You need to go somewhere else. I'm not going to be here all night. You need to leave. I don't care where you go, but you just need to leave. You're wasting my time. Like I don't have anything else to give you. I'm out of material. My throat hurts. My cup is empty. I just don't have anything else to give you. So I don't know what to tell you. Except for that you're kind of needy, like really needy. And I'm just done giving, you know? Like I don't know what else to give. You know? You need to go to your home. Like, can you just go to your home? Like, go to your home. Just tap it in. Just tappity tap tap taparoo. I mean, just tap it in. You know? Just go to your home. It's not a big deal. You know? I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You just can't stay here. You just got to go somewhere else. You know? Like, just stop. You know? I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, you know? Except for I really appreciate you guys. All right? Thank you so much. We're going to